Right now, I'd like to say good morning to former FEMA inspector and author Robert Winter. The book is Dust in the Wind, Real FEMA Disaster Stories. And Robert Winter, good morning and welcome to KDON.
Hey, good morning. Thank you very much for having me on. And hello, good morning, Las Vegas.
So tell me a little bit about what got you to thinking about writing a book on these real FEMA disaster stories.
Well, I've been a FEMA inspector for over 25 years, and every time I got back from a disaster, people would always ask me what happened, so I'd tell them all these stories, and they're like, you need to write a book. From the very first one I did, Hurricane Hugo in 1989. And from there on, I kept putting them together, and then over 25 years, finally I got the time to write it, and it took almost a year to write the book, and it's finally out, and it's doing well.
All right. I mean, for those who don't know, what is a FEMA inspector? I mean, you've got a general idea, but what exactly did you do as a FEMA inspector?
Okay, and I'm still a FEMA inspector, contract FEMA inspector. What happens is the President of the United States declares a declaration of a natural disaster. He contacts FEMA. FEMA then contacts contract FEMA inspectors like myself. We are then put out on the disaster within 24 hours. We have a computer, and when people apply for disaster assistance, because it's federally declared, they're downloaded into my computer. I make appointments, and the next morning I go out, and usually we're there within 24 hours, literally. Once I get on site, I introduce myself, let them know I'm from the federal government, everything's going to be okay, and I inspect their house for damages of real property, personal property, and I upload my report, and then FEMA decides what kind of assistance they can do for the individual.
Well, for those who don't know, what does FEMA stand for? It's an acronym, but what is it?
It's the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Okay, and that we say FEMA to make it shorter.
Yep.
Saves a lot of time.
That's correct.
What was the most difficult part of the job that you had when you worked for FEMA all those years? I know you're an independent contractor now, but during those years.
I think there's so many disasters that I've worked, and a lot of people ask which ones are the worst ones, Katrina or Ground Zero and disasters like that. But I think one of the big things that I see when I go out on all these disasters in my 25 years is that what's amazing is that the first 30 days, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, green, yellow, from Mars, everybody pulls together for a common cause. And they're like a team, and they work together. And team is together, everyone achieves more. And when I go to these disasters and I see that and think of the problems we're having right now with Ferguson, New York, the cop shootings and all that, it would be great if we could keep that 30 days going constantly, year round.
I don't know how you do that. Good luck. I mean, I'm with you on that one. Now, let's take Katrina.
Yeah.
You had disaster because of the weather. And then you had people trying to take advantage of that by looting, and some of those problems occurred. But you were at 9/11. You were at the Ground Zero, right?
No, I wasn't at 9/11. That's the only disaster I didn't work. But I was definitely at Katrina. I was there for almost 5 months. And Katrina, and like other disasters, my biggest personal thing that I really dislike is the looting factor, okay? Yeah, you're in a disaster and you may not get aid right away for Red Cross or FEMA or church groups or whatever, but it's not a reason to loot. I understand looting on the aspect of getting food, clothing, and shelter, but when you're stealing refrigerators, TVs, and all that, and just damaging stuff around the town, that's wrong. And the other part of looting is, I mean, people steal, go into homes and steal, especially in Katrina. They're breaking in all these homes. I saw this on the ground, working in the trenches, and to me it's just horrifying that someone would steal from a disaster victim.
One thing that stood out in my mind, I don't remember any discussion of any looting at all. That may have been, but I don't recall it. I remember that there are a lot of people covered in a gray soot, and you couldn't tell if they were white, black, brown, or yellow. Half time you couldn't tell if they're male or female. It looked like a person, or if you call it a person, covered in soot, and that's all we saw were people coming together to help people. And that feeling that you were talking about that day was one of the most incredible days of my life, not just because of the attack in this country and the lives we lost, but how this country actually came together at that moment. It was incredible.
That was, that's what I'm talking about, even that 30-day thing, but that was not just in the area of disaster, that was nationwide that pulled this country together, and that was awesome, and it'd be great if we could just keep that going.
Okay, well, if you find a way to do it, you're welcome to come on every day. And I also have in studio with me right now Robert Winter, a former FEMA inspector, author of Dust in the Wind, Real FEMA Disaster Stories. Before I go any further, so what was your most difficult process that you had to go through at Katrina, which is probably one of your biggest disasters?
Biggest problem with Katrina was, getting to the site. I mean, we had to stay up in Baton Rouge and travel all the way down every day into the disaster area. Plus, we had to wait almost 6 weeks for all the water to be drained out, okay? And looking at all the pictures that we see, and you're there on site at the Astrodome there, the New Orleans Dome, and seeing all the people and the strife. I mean, I would carry tons of food in my car and hand that out as I would go down in there. And it was just horrifying that there was no more help, and they're turning away volunteers at the same time.
Now, they rebuilt walls there and to try to keep it protected in case of another event. Are those walls really going to hold?
Yes, I went to Hurricane Isaac 2 years ago, and the walls did very, very well. There was none of them collapsed or anything like that, but at the same time, what they did is caused other areas to flood. So there was a lot, there was about 25,000 people that were very upset where they never flooded before, and now they're flooding, but the water isn't going in downtown.
So something like Katrina hits in the New Orleans area again, while New Orleans may be saved, some other areas may wind up suffering.
Yep.
It's a possibility.
Yeah. In some of these areas, though, they tell you right off when you're buying this area, this is going to be a flood area because they have all the levees built in that way. So it's, you're taking your chances. Is it going to flood? And some of those areas hadn't been flooded in 25, 40 years when they did the first levee system back years ago when they had massive
stuff
flooding.
Happens, and, it could happen at any time. You also, during the break, we were talking about, you were in Kauai, in Hawaii, for the disaster that occurred there many years ago, and you said something interesting. You said it's never been really fixed or corrected since.
Yes. In Kauai, to me, that was Hurricane Iniki, which happened on 9/11/92, ironically. Is that, that first 30 days I was talking about where everybody pulls together as a team, there in Kauai, 22 years later now, they still are a team, and it's an awesome situation. There are no battle lines drawn between black, white, yellow, green, any of that stuff, and they're like a textbook disaster. I've been on disasters where people literally got shot for cutting in line to get cheese from a Red Cross truck. Okay, but in Kauai, it was amazing how they're just a textbook disaster as far as the people go.
But they repaired the problems, though.
Oh, yeah.
The problems repaired. So what do you think, what was it about Kauai coming together for 30 days and extending that all these years, as opposed to all these other disasters where it's a 30-day and then out?
You know what? I think the answer there is the aloha spirit. If you ever go to Kauai, it's a different place on this planet, and that aloha spirit, I think, is what pulls them all together.
Really? So a certain connection with the land and with the culture, with the environment?
Yep, that's it. And even when you go there, you become part of it. I was there for almost 3 years after the event. But in my second year, they had a 1-year anniversary of Iniki, and I actually won first place for Aloha Spirit. I told some stories about my travels with FEMA, which some of those are in my book, and I couldn't believe it. I'm what they call a haole, a white person, and yet I won with the contest with the most Aloha Spirit over all the Hawaiians and the Polynesians and everybody else. That was
got into it.
Yeah, it's easy to do. It's such a relaxing, laid-back place.
And yet other communities can't quite do the same thing. I guess people move to Kauai, and they people who live there. People who move there with a certain attitude. We had friends move there years ago. A gal, remember, she moved there, and she was like, very mellow and stuff like that from Northern California, and she fit right into the culture. She wanted to be part of that. I guess when you move to other cities and other communities, there may not be that same sense of community or sameness.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But then when you're in a disaster situation and everybody then pulls together for a common cause, trying to get back to normal, which is a tough thing to do when everything's destroyed around you.
It's amazing. Now the book, by the way, is Dust in the Wind, Real FEMA Disaster Stories. Tons of stories from Robert Winter, who is a former FEMA inspector, but now still doing some stuff on contract for them. But you're going to be you're participating in a desert relief fund. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, I have a disaster relief fund. It's called Celebrities for Disaster Relief, and I've been a bodyguard for over 20 years. So when I was writing the book, a lot of the celebrities that I've worked for over the years said, you need to start a disaster foundation and we'll help you out. So I have a lot of celebrities all lined up to do this. We just went live about 2 weeks ago. In fact, here in town I'm having a book signing, and one of my celebrities that I bodyguarded, Tim Kosari, who's been in Full Metal Jacket, Eraser, Babylon 5, and 57 other movies. He's going to be there because he's giving back. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of celebrities want to go to these disasters and give back. They're living the dream that we only dream about, and yet they're there to give back. I'll never forget when Oprah Winfrey showed up in Katrina at the Houston Astrodome, and she was only there for 4 hours. She's a busy woman, billionaire. She has a lot of things on her table, but she made a point to be there for 4 hours, and that was so uplifting to the disaster victims you cannot believe. So a lot of the celebrities that I've worked for over the years want to do the same thing for me. They want to help my book get going, my celebrity foundation. And if you go on my website, celebritiefordisasterrelief.org, you can read all about what these celebrities are going to do for my foundation.
Okay, now this book sign you're talking about, where is it and when is it?
Yeah, it's going to be January 3rd at Winchell's Pub and Grill. That's 5445 Simmons. It's on the corner of Simmons and Ann. And Tim Kosari will be there. He has posters, pictures, he'll do autographs, and he's really a funny guy because he's an actor, director, acting coach, and a comedian, and he tells all the stories behind the scenes, stuff about like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Eraser and stuff like that, and it's great. It's a great thing. We had a lot of people.
And the third is a Saturday. What time is it going to be?
It's going to be from 12 to 5 o'clock. That's January 3rd at Winchell's Pub and Grill, 5445 Simmons. Also, I'd like to plug my book. If you're interested in buying my book, I have several sites. One of the things you can do is just Google my name, Robert Winter, Dust in the Wind. You'll have all of my websites where my book's available. Plus, you'll have my YouTube channel and my disaster relief fund. Other than that, it's dustinthewindfemabook.com. And,
And again, at Winchell's Pub on the 3rd, what time again?
From 12 to 3, January 3rd.
All right, excellent. Check it out. Robert Winter, author of Dust in the Wind, Real FEMA Disaster Stories. Thank you, sir, for stopping by.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Good to have you here this morning, and good luck to you. And